Greg Thompson sat in his modest Melbourne apartment, unwinding after a long day at work. A cold beer in hand, he hoped the buzz from his phone would be a message from his daughter, Emily. It had been a while since they last spoke, and he was eager for an update on her wedding plans. Instead of a text, a photo popped up, a beautifully designed wedding invitation. His chest tightened as he realized it wasn't sent to him. It was on Emily's Instagram story. Gold script, delicate floral motifs. Stunning. But it announced Emily and Lucas's wedding tomorrow, October 12th, at Golden Hills Estate in Sydney. Greg stared at the screen, disbelief washing over him. He had known the wedding was near, but he'd clung to hope. Maybe Emily had forgotten to send him an invitation. She couldn't intentionally exclude him from such an important day. Could she? Scrolling through the comments, he saw congratulations from friends, family, and acquaintances. Everyone seemed to be in the loop. Except him. Frustration and confusion welled inside him. He picked up the phone and dialed Emily's number. Voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. His grip tightened, anger surging. Then came a text from his ex-wife, Sophie. Greg, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Emily made her choice. Please respect it. No drama tomorrow. Drama. Respect. The words ignited old wounds. Memories of Sophie and Dan Murray, the man who had shattered their marriage, flooded back. Dan had always been around, a family friend, but Greg had never trusted him. Now, Dan was going to walk Emily down the aisle. Greg's mind flashed to the divorce, the betrayal, Sophie's confession. The year since had been difficult, but he'd hoped Emily, his only child, would remain his anchor. Now, it felt like he had been erased from her life. He remembered happier times, the early days with Sophie, young, hopeful, building a future together. But as her career flourished, their marriage frayed. Late nights, distant glances, the subtle signs that Sophie's focus had shifted. Then came the devastating truth. The messages with Dan. Confronting Sophie had only confirmed it. She hadn't been happy for years. That was the beginning of the end. After the divorce, Emily's life split between Greg's modest apartment and Sophie's upscale home. Sophie's influence grew, and soon Greg felt like a fading memory in his daughter's life. Now, sitting alone, the pain was undeniable. The thought that Emily, the girl he had loved unconditionally, was excluding him from her wedding, cut deeply. He refused to be sidelined. He would attend the wedding, whether they approved or not. He put on his best suit, an old navy blue one, and combed his hair. Time had left its mark, but there was still fire in him. Grabbing his car keys, he drove the long distance to Golden Hills Estate, the vineyard where the ceremony would take place. The drive gave him time to think, and by the time he arrived, his mind was a whirlwind. The estate was breathtaking. Rolling hills, endless vineyards, and a pristine white chapel at the center. Elegant, sophisticated, everything Sophie would have chosen, far from the simpler life Greg had imagined for Emily. He parked a short distance away and paused, listening to the sounds of wedding preparations, the music, the chatter. Uninvited or not, all that mattered now was Emily. He moved closer, keeping out of sight, scanning the crowd. He saw Sophie, radiant in a designer gown, laughing with friends. Dan stood beside her, exuding confidence, the man who had taken so much from him. And then he saw her, Emily, glowing in her wedding dress, chatting with her bridesmaids. His heart ached at the sight, love and sorrow colliding in equal measure. Dan placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, and she smiled up at him, the same way she used to smile at Greg. The music shifted, and Emily linked arms with Dan, signaling the start of the ceremony. Greg's chest tightened. He stepped forward, then another step, moving toward the center. Conversations fell silent, eyes turning toward him. Sophie saw him first, shock widening her eyes. She whispered something to Dan, who frowned. The guests stirred, uncertain of what was happening. Greg's presence swept over the celebration like a cold wind. Sophie approached, her voice low and tense. Greg. But he didn't listen. He had been silenced for too long. Emily noticed him, her face paling as their eyes met. Time seemed to freeze. Dad, she whispered faintly. Emily, Greg said, voice clear enough for all to hear, soft enough to carry the weight of years of pain. I love you. I've always loved you. I thought I'd walk you down the aisle today. Sophie opened her mouth to interrupt, but Greg continued. I don't know why you felt you couldn't have me here, but I am your father. I've been there your whole life. I deserve to be part of this day. Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She glanced between him and Dan. Dad, I didn't invite you because I thought it would be easier for everyone. Mom said it would be simpler this way. Easier for who, Emily? For you or for them? Greg asked softly but firmly. The question hung in the air. Emily's face crumpled in sorrow. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. She sobbed and stepped into his arms. They held each other tightly, tears flowing freely. The guests remained silent, witnessing the reunion. Sophie stood at a distance, arms crossed, face hard. Dan shifted uneasily. But Greg was there for Emily, not them. I thought you didn't want me in your life anymore, Emily whispered. How could you think that, sweetheart? You're my daughter. You've always been my everything, Greg said. A pause. Then Emily, voice cracking. Will you still walk me down the aisle, Dad? Greg's heart swelled. Of course I will. They linked arms, stepping forward as the music swelled. It wasn't as he had imagined, but it was real. At the altar, he handed Emily over to Lucas, her fiancé, with a firm, heartfelt nod. Take care of her, he said, voice thick with emotion. Lucas nodded solemnly. Greg stepped back, taking a seat among the guests. He had fought for his place in Emily's life, and won. At the reception, under a large tent by the vineyard, Greg watched Emily laugh with friends and family. She was radiant. For the first time in years, he felt at peace. Sophie approached, muttering under her breath. You just couldn't let it go, could you? Arms crossed, glaring. This isn't about you, Sophie, Greg replied calmly. It's about Emily. She needed her father today, and I wasn't going to fail her. Sophie scoffed, rolling her eyes. She was fine without you. No, Greg said firmly. She wasn't. And you know it too. Her pride faltered briefly. Then she turned away. Greg watched her go, free of bitterness. He had won the only battle that mattered. Later, standing at the edge of the dance floor, Greg felt Emily approach with her husband. Her eyes shone with gratitude. Dad, she whispered. Thank you for being here for everything. I wouldn't have missed it for anything, he replied, embracing her. In that moment, they were father and daughter again. Though not perfect, there was hope. A chance to rebuild, to heal, to strengthen the bond that had always been there. As Emily and Lucas shared their first dance, Greg sat back, heart full. He had lost much over the years, but tonight, he had reclaimed what mattered most, his place in his daughter's life. And for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to hope.